Leisa Show.
We are back again. I'm Greg.
And I'm Lisa. And our topic today is
starting your own business.
Yeah. Why in the world would anybody want to start their own business? It's beyond me. I'm coming from somebody who's been in their own business for 27 years.
And who just kind of started getting into it, taking an entrepreneurship class, getting some stuff going. So why? There's a lot we're going to get into. For me though, chief reason why is I can't really pass being a guy who sits at a desk and writing insurance software on to my children. That's one, but we'll get into more of that. I know we've got some pros and cons and more of the details about starting up to kind of get to here.
Yeah, but what is one of the pros of being in your own business? If you were to think about it, I think a lot of people think a pro being in your own business is you can call your own schedule and do your own thing, which I want to tell you is not necessarily true, because when you do start your own business, you're at the mercy of your clients, and in order to get the work done, you have to be on their schedule, and it doesn't necessarily coincide with yours. But there are times when you can make your own schedule. But the main thing I think people think is they can say that they own their own business. They like to have that power of ownership.
And there is something to that. When you own your own business, regardless of whether you have employees or not, you do get to, you're in charge of how that runs. You're in charge of the principles and the values and the mission statement and the vision and all that stuff. So, if some of the big corporations, you're not a fan of how they run, you go ahead and run it different.
That's right. You have that opportunity to run it the way you would like to see it run. What are some of the cons in being in your own business?
Oh, man. Well, like you said, kind of the same as the pro. So we're saying, okay, I like owning my own business because I can set my own schedule. You certainly can't, but I think more than the scheduling part of it is there's risk involved. If you do a service for somebody, your customer is essentially your boss. You do a service for somebody and they don't like it, you provide a product they don't like. Refunds are a thing, but so are lawsuits at times.
Right, and it all comes back to you. I always say, the buck stops with me. But also, a con is you're not in control of when you get paid. It's not like having a job where you're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks or twice a month, and you get paid vacations and paid time off and paid sick time. When you're in your own business, you don't necessarily get that. And that is a big con. As we go in and we talk about the business and running it and starting it, you're going to find out that it is an issue. And that's one of the biggest challenges in being in your own business. So how do you start your own business and what goes into it, Greg?
Well, a lot of that depends on your state, but really to start, you have to know what your business is, your passion, your area of expertise. What do you enjoy? It has to be a niche. You can't go and say, I'm just going to target everybody with everything. That doesn't work. You have to have a focus.
Yeah, you need a focus. But you also have to have a little bit of diversity, because it comes back to don't want all your eggs in one basket.
Yes, you shouldn't just say, I'm going to serve gentlemen named Tom who were 45 years old. That can't be the target.
Yeah. But you also have to look at, who is your target market? Who is your customer? You need to look at that. Are they going to be big corporations? Are they going to be local? What is your target market, and who is going to be buying your product or using your services? So you have to do a lot of homework before you actually decide to start your own business.
Yes, absolutely. And the competition, a lot of these things, you may want to start a business and say, there's all this competition. Your niche can set you apart in that.
You can, and you have to look at, if you can solve a problem. One of the things that I learned early on is try to go into a recession-proof business. And a recession-proof business is one that there's always going to be something in existence. It's a perpetual business. So you need to look at, what is your niche? What is your specialty? And how is it different from your competitors? But you also have to look at, if you're going to, say, open a certain type of business, how many of those businesses in that same area or genre are in within a 3 to 5 mile radius of where you want to be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just as an example, if you were to say, well, I'd like to open a restaurant in Northeast Ohio where we are, you take a 3 to 5 mile radius of that, the answer is probably in the triple digits.
Right, and what's going to set you apart? And I think that's one of the things you have to look at is what is going to set you apart. And you don't want to be in a business that is oversaturated. Because that kind of is setting yourself up for failure. So you have to have that, thing that sets you apart. But you need to do your research and your homework before you start, looking at opening your own business, because it does fall on you. And, ignorance is no excuse. So you have to do your homework. You have to learn the ropes. You have to see exactly what you're going to need. You're going to look at everything on it. So now that we have talked about the first set of questions to get started, what's part of the mechanics of, looking at starting your business?
Well, one thing is you have to decide on a name. Are you going to use your own name and just do business as yourself? Or, different states have different rules for this, but are you going to have a doing business as, like an actual, business entity name?
Right. And you have to do a name search, and each state will have a website that they can go to. It's either going to be usually the Department of Commerce or the Secretary of State. But you want to search your name, because if somebody else has your name, you can't use it. And you need to look at what your state laws are and what your state requirements are. So you might want to pick a first, second, and third choice for a name in case the name that you really liked is taken. And then that way you can search and see what else is out there.
And it's important to do that search, because if you don't do that search and you just send a name in that's already used, breaking news, government processes aren't always fast. So you may not get the memo back on that, and your plans may be delayed, and you might be needing to order marketing materials, other things, want to start telling people about it, and you can't because of this name issue.
Right. Yeah, and so you need to make sure, and then if your name is available, then you want to go ahead and you want to try and purchase it through the state, and usually there's an online application, or a lot of them you can still mail them in with paper, and you can register that name. And you're looking at your name, you want to look at, do you want to register it? Do you just want a business name? Do you want to trademark it? You have to look at what your vision is and your objective is for your business. To start out small is a good place to start. I always recommend that. And you need to start out minimum budget, because you want to make sure that you're not going to put your household into financial jeopardy because you want to start your business. And usually the only way starting a business works is if you still have one person in the household that is making a steady income that can pay the regular household bills while you are trying to start your business.
Absolutely.
And that also means that you might still be working a part-time job or a full-time job while you are trying to start your business. But when you get ready to decide what kind of a company you want, do you want a limited liability company? Do you want a corporation, an S Corp, a C Corp? Like Greg said, a DBA.
Right. You can remain a sole proprietor. Different states will call that differently. You can remain a sole proprietor and still have a doing business as DBA, business name, website, marketing materials. Doesn't all have to have your name on it. So you can still do those kinds of things.
Right, but the type of business that you choose will sometimes determine if you have to have a separate tax ID number or if you're allowed to use your social security number. So again, that's something that, if you have any questions, you can check with your local attorney. You can learn on your state's website and see what is really going to work the best for you.
And a lot of times as well, local chapters of the SBA, the Small Business Association, will have some free assistance and, be able to point you in the right direction. They're not necessarily lawyers. They may have a lawyer, on site at certain times, but just to note that not everybody you go and talk to there is going to be a lawyer.
Right. And they have a lot of free classes, like Greg said, and they will sometimes give you a mentor as well to work with and to help you get started in starting your business. I did find some Bible verses, of course, regarding, starting your business, and one is Proverbs 14:23.
This one's killer. I was looking down at it as we're about to get to it. I'm like, okay.
Yep, it says, all hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. You know, I often say sometimes I've heard the wind blow before. Well, you know, that's true. It's all talk and no action. And to be in your own business, it takes a lot of action.
You gotta have some steak with the sizzle. You gotta have some bite with the bark.
Right, right.
Yep.
Proverbs 10:4 says, lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth.
That's weird. It's almost like that's consistent with the first one.
I know, it is. It is. It's like I always told my son, my kids, is that, you know, the Bible says that you prosper by the fruit of your hands. And that's true. What's Proverbs 16:8 say, Greg?
Proverbs 16:8 says, better a little with righteousness than much gain with injustice. So anybody who ever said the Bible wants you to get rich quickly should probably go to that one.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
You want to be able to, I mean, at the end of the day, we're starting businesses, but we're still human beings. So aside from laws and stuff, we just have to be able to sleep at night.
Right. And I think if you make it, if you do the right thing, you can sleep at night. And I think that's one of the things about being righteous is when you're making the right decision, you're doing what's in the best interest of your family, your clients, your customers, then you know you can go to sleep at night and know you did the best you could do.
And that's absolutely something you have to consider because in certain lines of business, you can certainly add some zeros to the paychecks doing things in the wrong way. But
yes, but what goes around comes around.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
Eventually.
why you have to consider it. So if you're looking at, I operate this way and I'm going to make this amount of money, but if I do it the right way, I'm going to make less. And maybe that's, you know, something that's, you change your niche or focus.
Yeah. Well, and Proverbs 13:11 says, dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow.
It's so weird. It's almost like the Bible is consistent on how it treats work and money and honesty and justice and all that.
Yeah, and there's an integrity to it.
Yes.
I mean, your word is your word, and when you're talking to a client or trying to win over a new customer through your sales techniques, you know, the first time you don't do a good job, that not so good job will follow you faster and quicker than the 100 that you did well.
Right, and there is that, but I think above all it's important to be honest about where you're at. If you're just starting out,
right,
you can let your client know that. Let them make that decision. Let them know what they're getting. Now, saying you're just starting out doesn't mean that's not a blanket excuse to go do a bad job.
Right.
But you're allowed to set an expectation.
Yeah. Yeah, you are, and people know that when you're a young business that you're growing and you're going to go and experience some challenges and hoops that you have to go through. But one of the big things is that you need to start your business with the right motives and the right desires of the heart. And that goes back to doing righteous and being right and having the integrity and the honesty. But being in business for 27, plus years, it's been challenging. And I know that all the glory in my life goes to God, because if it wasn't for Him, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. But you need to have God with you on your business journey, because trust me, it sometimes is not such a pretty journey to be on, and that hope and that faith really does come into play. Because like I said, on the financial end, you think about, oh man, my clients didn't pay me this month. How am I gonna pay the bills I need to for the business, or put gas in the trucks for the lawnmowers, and for people to get on the road. And you have to really look at everything as a whole. So, which brings us back to 2, when you're starting a business, is you need a good business plan.
Absolutely. So yeah, your business plan, and a big part of that, I touched on it earlier. What are your marketing strategies? How are you going to get customers? But the biggest thing, and I don't think we can harp on this enough, is what is unique about your business, because there's probably not a thing you can think of that hasn't been done before. I'm not saying that's impossible, but it is extremely difficult to pick something out to do that no one has done. There's never going to be zero competition.
Yeah, and if there is, then God's really blessed you with a really great idea.
Yeah,
And hopefully,
and if you get that, I'm not saying you can't have that.
Yeah.
That probably
Yeah.
does exist. There are
Right.
unique ideas
Yeah.
out there, but it's I would say it's just one of the less
Yeah,
likely
it's
things.
far and few between.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it does go back to what sets you different from the rest of the business. When you're looking at your competitors, what are you going to do different that is going to, make a new client want to come to you? But one of the biggest issues in business is always going to be money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that you need to look at right up front. And I always recommend you don't go into business by spending a lot of money to get started. Because in my mind, it's the worst thing that you can do. And you have to start out small. I remember when we started out, I went to Rex's Salvage and I bought a riding lawnmower.
Oh yeah.
I had a pickup truck, and we put the lawnmower in the back of the pickup truck, and we went and cut grass. And the office was in the basement of the home, and we had ramps to get that mower up on the back of that truck, and that's how we started. So you figure I had maybe a $600 or $700 investment with my first mower, and gas and travel time, and that's how we initially started. So you have to look at your business to do it as financially possible, frugal, economical, whatever term that you want to use to get started, that is not going to break the bank and break your house.
And all I want to say about that is, so from my perspective, my little DJ tech business, I spent, oh gosh, let me crunch the numbers real quick on how much I spent.
Mm-hmm.
I spent $39 to register a name.
Yeah.
And that was it. It was equipment I already had and knowledge that was already in my head. So, the thing I want to touch on with that though is, yes, you want to be frugal with money. You don't want to be cheap with your work.
Right. Because if you're selling a service, I always told people that work with me is that people should be able to see you were there. They could see you did a good job. They know you were there. Mm-hmm. And that is the important thing. It doesn't matter if the house is vacant or the house is occupied. It should look like, somebody lives there, whether somebody lives there or not. And so your service and your job is your reputation. And it depends on, of course, your business. But it's your reputation and your integrity that is going to follow you and that's going to set you apart. I was never big on schmoozing the clients. I wasn't like a lot of my counterparts in business that would go on golfing trips or, take people here and there. I always felt my work and my service should speak for itself. And 27 plus years later, I'm still in business. And so you have to look at, what is your goal? But I also, God is my number one. And he, gets me through the tough times, the lean times, and you have to learn to budget when you're in your own business because you don't know when you're going to get paid again. And you have to, really plan ahead. So in the beginning, you're going to have a lot of sweat equity because you're going to make a lot of calls. You're going to spend a lot of time. You're going to do mailings or you're going to be online and social media.
You're going to do things like take a full set of DJ equipment in a Toyota Corolla, which... Mm-hmm. It fits. Yeah. That's about all that fits, but it fits.
Yeah. But it's like anything else in business. You have to maybe reach 100 people before you get one client. And Absolutely. You have to have the patience and you have to have the drive and the determination. Nothing is easy and nothing is immediate. And you have to set your own personal goals. Whether, you're working full time while you're doing this, you're going to reach out to 10 people a week, or, you have to make something that is realistic. And you have to network. A lot of times getting into a network of like businesses or associations that you can network with that'll start getting your name out there and, start having people refer you is always a good way to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to say that about marketing, and I want to note that the younger of the two of us is the one saying this, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little more, but social media marketing is great, but, pounding pavement, talking to people, sending letters, these things are all still good too.
They are. It's still about that personal relationship.
Yes.
I know it's hard sometimes to get that person on the phone to talk to in a business so that you can introduce yourself. And I know from being on the other side of the fence when I worked for, national companies, I hated to take my time to talk to a new customer because I was happy with my current vendors and I didn't always want to talk to a new one. But I would talk to them and ask them to send me information, and if I got the information, it was something that I was interested in, I would call them back and I would talk to them a little more.
Yeah.
But it would be at my convenience when I could, schedule a time to talk
and
with
like
them.
you said, relationship building. It's almost like relationship building keeps coming back in our videos too. That's amazing,
does.
folks. But
Yeah.
so with that relationship building, if you say no to that person and you build a good relationship, you leave it on good terms. And if something happens with your current vendor or your current supplier or whatever it might be, you're going to have, somebody who's more than happy to hear from you and already kind of knows you and already has a good rapport. And that stuff is just, you can't describe the value of that.
Right. You can't. And then there would be times that I might have a property and I would say, I'm going to give this person a try. I'm going to give them a job and see how they do. And, if they do a good job, then, I'll put them on my list of vendors that, I would want to use. So, but you have to talk to them and you have to start building that relationship. And people like to put a name with a face. And, even if you can stop in and introduce yourself and leave a card or leave in a marketing package or a promotional item. When we first started out early on, we gave out mouse pads to everybody. So every time they were on the computer, our company name was there. And so anything that you can do that will keep your company name on the forefront is always a good idea. But what about insurance in business, Greg? That's another thing we have to look at before we start a business.
We have to do that. I do enough of that in my personal life. We have to do that. Yeah, absolutely. Business insurance, bonded or insured. What kind of insurance do you need to cover your salary, equipment, computers? Anything. There's all kinds of stuff. Liability insurance.
Right. You have to look at what is, the need of your business. If you are going to have employees that are working on another company's site, are they going to be inside a property, outside a property? What are the liabilities of your exposure as a company owner for your employees? Because you are responsible for your employees. I had an employee who ripped off one of my clients to the tune of $16,000. I only had him bonded up to $10,000, and that meant me as a business owner had to pay the other $6,000 to my client to make them whole. And so that was $6,000 that was out of my bottom line or out of my profit or out of my budget. But if I wanted to maintain that client relationship, I had to pay that money to keep that relationship. Also, in the bonding process, I had to prosecute her and put her in jail. And she had the opportunity for restitution. She didn't take it. She didn't do anything, and she ended up in jail. And, in order for the bonding company to pay. But you need to look at what your exposure is. Because the bottom line is, the buck stops at the top because you are the business owner.
Yeah, you are ultimately responsible for that. It's almost like integrity and responsibility are coming back as a topic here.
It is. It really is. But you don't want to be over-insured either, because starting a business, insurance is expensive. And you have to look at and shop around, because you'll get different prices from different companies, just like you do for your car and your homeowner's insurance. About, if you're not making a big salary in the business and you're still working full time, then chances are you don't need to have your salary covered in your business at this point in time. It might be something you'll want to add on later on. But you will want to make sure that your business equipment, your computers, your software, and all of that is covered in the event of any type of an emergency or a disaster, or you want to make sure that you are adequately covered.
Absolutely.
So you also need to look at, are you going to need employees? Is this something that you're going to try to do yourself? Or is this a family-run business where your family is mainly working in the business?
Or is it just you? Or are you going to need independent contractors?
Right.
And if you have those employees, how are you going to pay them? W-2s, 1099s?
Right. That's right. And I will tell you, personnel is the biggest issue in business. It doesn't matter what business you're in, personnel is the biggest issue. It doesn't matter if you're working for a corporation, personnel is the biggest issue. If you're running your own business, personnel is the biggest issue. It's one of the things that is unfortunate sometimes. I tried to always pay my employees fairly, and I tried to take care of them the way I would like to be treated, because that was one of the things when I worked for corporations was I wasn't treated the way I thought I should have been treated. So I'll open my own business to treat people the way I think that they should be treated.
Absolutely.
And so you have to look at it as a whole. But I was up to 45 employees at one time. When everything started happening and the buck started stopping with me, I downsized because it wasn't worth it anymore. And the employees didn't appreciate what they had and what they were given. I didn't have to give them health insurance back in the 90s, but I did it as, a courtesy, and they don't think about it. The $60,000 premium that I was paying as my portion for the employees, was a lot of money to me.
That's a ton of money.
It was.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they didn't think it was. I mean, they didn't, have any type of appreciation. They just always think that you owe them everything.
And that's one of the other expenses you have to consider when you have people. Workers' comp, FICA taxes, federal, state, local taxes. You're going to have to hire an accountant. You're going to have to pay for QuickBooks. You add people to the equation, the expenses go up.
They certainly do. And so if you're adding people to the equation and expenses are going up, what does that mean for your product or your services? They're going up too.
Absolutely.
And so you have to...
Well, either the price is going up or your profit's going down. One of the two.
Or you're going out of business.
Or that. Yep.
Yep. So... one of the things is, are you going to be able to start your business from home? And if you at all can, it is the best. I always say that because immediately once you start renting property to house your business, you have to pay rent, you have to pay utilities, you have a lot more expenses that are hitting your bottom line, and you have to look at it as, there goes your profit.
So they don't just give you the building to have your business in.
No, unfortunately.
No, that's too bad. But you're right. Obviously, your building's going to need some form of insurance too. We were just talking about insurance. There's another thing on there.
That's right. That's right. And when you are in your own business, it's 24/7. I don't care what anybody says. I used to be on call all the time. If my clients, I always give them my cell phone number so that they knew they could always talk to me. But now, further in the business, most of my clients work in 8 to 5 jobs. So unless I have something going on that's out of town, I'm pretty much good on the weekends. But a lot of times the weekend is the time you have to get other work done, because you have to be available Monday through Friday when your clients are available.
Yeah. You have the bills, the taxes, the organization, filing.
Yeah.
Posting, doing marketing.
Right.
That has to happen sometime.
Right, and it all takes time.
Yes.
And so you need to look at, is it going to fit your lifestyle? Is it something that, you have talked to your significant other or those in the household that are willing to work? I know my son hated cutting grass, and he was 14. When we first started, he hated it, but he did it. He went with us and we cut grass, and it was started out as a family-run business, and a lot of nieces and nephews worked in the business, and it was good for them going through high school to have money, and to this day there's still work available if they want to do it.
Absolutely.
So one of the important things in starting a business too is, do you have a business logo?
Business logo? Business cards. A physical business card is not out of style by any means.
No.
They're so easy to do and carry around. A business address, now this is an interesting thing. So even if you're a home-run business, there are different agencies and organizations. You have to pay them a little bit, but they will let you use their spot as a physical business address.
Yes, they will.
And if you don't want, a lot of times when you start businesses, corporations, LLCs, if you're using your address, that ends up being posted somewhere, and you may not want that. May be okay for what you're doing, but may not be.
Right. So you can make that decision because you can get a P.O. box. Now there's a lot of forms that won't accept your P.O. box, but you can certainly get a P.O. box to mail all your the majority of your mail to if you want to.
Still got to pay for that one though. They don't give you
Yeah.
those either.
That's right, it's not free. But the one you used to say when I started in business that the best dressed business person was the person that had their business cards with them, because you were always willing and ready to pass out your business cards as part of the networking process.
It's a very quick thing to do, and whatever other social media or forms of contact you want to point them to, you can list them on that simple little
Right.
wallet-sized piece of cardboard that can be so wonderful to just easily pull out and give somebody.
Right, right. So, and also then you're going to decide when you make out, your tax forms, or you decide what company you're going to use, whether you're going to need a tax ID number. And that's really easily done on the computer as well with the IRS. Or you can use your social security number if you're going to do it doing business as. You want to look at letterhead. One of the rules of thumb in our business was always nothing went out of the business handwritten. It was always typed or printed. All the labels, everything was always typed or printed, unless you were doing a personal note, thank you card, or follow up. That you could
And I
write
would assume you'd
something
do
on.
signatures.
Right.
You would always
Right.
hand sign.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So you need to look at that, and you need to look at today. Do you have a website?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I almost said MySpace. I almost said it. There's so many more than even that though. Like I'm the younger guy on this show, but these kids today have many more social media than the ones we just listed. So
Yes.
it is important to have an online presence, and just from my experience with it, each of them takes a little different kind of touch to really get going on it. It's not necessarily a one post fits all. It's not always drastically different,
Right.
but different platforms are looking for a different thing that does well on there.
Right. And it does take time. If you're going to have an email address, you have to check your emails. I know I'm terrible at follow through sometimes. But if you have several businesses like I do, I have several emails that need to be checked, and several LinkedIn accounts and several Facebook pages, and you have to look at everything to kind of stay on top of it. That's another reason though I give people my phone number, because I am a relationship person. I would rather talk to you, and I'd rather have you call me and leave me a message and let me call you back if I don't answer, so that I can talk to you and see what your real problem is, versus sending me an email or trying to get a hold of me.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we touched on it earlier, but being paid in your business can certainly be a challenge. You certainly don't have a regular payday. You may be doing well enough for a time that it kind of seems that way, but you get paid when your clients pay you. So you have to think about a lot of different things with that. One, do a good job so they keep coming back.
Right.
Do a good job so they spread the word and you get more. But also, you have to have a good method for taking those payments and collecting that money.
You do, and a lot of times it's ACH now, it's automatically deposited. But the thing is, you have to remember that when you submit an invoice to your client, sometimes it'll sit on that person's desk for a week or two before they even process it, or before it even gets up to accounts payable. And they don't think about it because they get their paycheck every week or every 2 weeks, so it's no big deal to them. They don't think about the people that are waiting on those invoices to get paid, because we don't have a check coming in every week.
No, certainly not. And that 1 to 2 week time frame, that's normal.
Yeah, but that's normal to get it processed. By the time it gets up to accounts payable, it's another 2 weeks. So
and that's like not like just the time these things take. That's not bad. Like that's a decent.
That's a 30-day turnaround.
Yeah,
if
and
you're lucky.
that's what decent is.
Yeah.
that 30 days is the bar for like good turnaround on that.
Except for when you're going to pay your bills, because if you have a 30-day, you have a business loan, that's affected on your credit.
Okay.
And if you don't have a backup plan, you have to look at that.
Good relative to other time frames, but yeah, you certainly can. Not necessarily good for you.
No, it's not. But one of the things that you can do on your invoice to try and help expedite payment is if you do a 2 or 3 or 5% discount for a net payment. So if they pay that invoice within within 2 weeks, you give them a 3% discount. And a lot of times that will help expedite that payment. But there's times I've been 30, 60, 90 days trying to collect, from my clients and trying to get bills paid. And you have to have a collection process on how you're going to do that, because let's face it, other people in the collection business are giving you a reminder call at 10 days. They're giving you a reminder call at 20, and they're, reporting to the credit bureau at 30. When it's getting close to 30 days on mine, I will make a phone call, and I will either send an email or a phone call, and I'll say, hey, has this invoice been submitted? Because I look at it as that's my business. When you're affecting my business on the way that you pay me, then, I have to do my due diligence as well, just the same as you will.
And that's something you have to be able to do and do confidently. If you're not the type of person who can handle a confrontation, you're certainly going to run into a confrontation making calls like that at some point.
Yeah, and you have to be professional about it. And I always try to lean on the side of, I know you're busy, but can you tell me if this email has been processed yet? And then usually they'll say, oh, I forgot, or it's going to be done this week. So if they tell me it's going to be done this week, then I know that payment will be next week. It's never going to be within that same week. But you also learn your clients, and you learn how they pay, and you make those decisions. And sometimes there's going to be a decision where you may not want to keep that client because they don't pay you so well. And you do the work, and it takes forever to get paid. So then you have to decide, maybe you're going to, get a new client to replace that client.
Absolutely.
Right. But you also have to have a backup plan. Do you have a reserve? It's just like in family financing, they want you to have 6 months of reserve in case somebody loses their job, or, there's health issues, and you have that reserve to fall back on. So you want to try and get away from using a business credit line as your reserve, because the interest is high and you have to have money to pay that. And if you're not getting paid, you don't want to be part of that 21.9% that's going out in the first year.
No, that's absolutely, that can be a vicious cycle, and that's not to say that business credit is bad. It's incredibly useful, but that's not the right way to use it.
Yeah, you have to have the income to make the payments.
Yes.
And so, you have to plan a budget, just like in your family household. You have to look at your business needs and how are you going to pay your business needs. What you have, your monthly insurance, what your monthly expenses are to perform your work. If you have to hire contractors, you have to be able to pay them, because they don't want to wait on their money either. So sometimes you have money up front waiting to get reimbursed from your clients because you had to pay somebody to help.
Yeah. So you're going to start with a budget. Is that budget $1,000 to start? Now, if anybody who's been in the working world has had to do a budget for who they work for, the next question you're going to get, how can you do that for less?
Yeah.
And you have to start asking yourself that question in your own business too. You have to get used to thinking that way.
You do, because if you don't always look for a better way or how to do it, or to, time is money. Something's why a lot of businesses do time studies, is they want to see if they can cut the time down, because the more work they can get out of you in an 8-hour day is more profit for them and more work that's processed. So you have to do the same thing sometimes. Maybe you have to have a more efficient, bookkeeping program that's going to help you when it comes time to, making your payroll checks, or maybe you get a better price on product. One of the things you have to look at, if you're going to be selling a product, do you have a vendor's license where you can purchase your product wholesale, so you're not paying sales tax on everything? Then you can shop around for your wholesale distributors to see that can give you a better price.
Yep. And I was going to say, the only other thing I'd say is, you ask, how can I do it for less? In some situations, you may need to spend money you didn't want to, if that is the best, if it is truly the best way, or the only way, or
Well, they always say that saying is, you have to spend money to make money. Which is true to a point, but when you're starting a business, you don't need the best of everything. You don't have to go buy a fleet of trucks or a fleet of mowers, or 100% uniforms, or cars being wrapped with your name on them. You have to start wisely, and that's where it comes down to. using your resources that you have in
Yeah.
a wise and efficient manner.
And the integrity and doing good work is a
Right.
big piece of that
Right.
too. The sweat equity has a lot of value when you don't have paper equity,
Right.
as it were.
Right. So, but the big thing is you have to make sure that everybody in your household is on the same page, because if you're not, and you want to start a business and your spouse doesn't want you to start a business, then you have problems. And that can run into issues later on down the road. Now, in my instance, a spouse was going to join me in the business, and then they changed their mind and decided they didn't want to join me in the business. And so that put me in a bind because I was already in my own business. Now, had I known that going into the business, I probably would have stayed where I was working and wouldn't have started
Sure.
my own business, because I would have thought, I was looking at it as, hey, good, we can work together and we can travel together and we can go here and go there and do business and be together. And then when it came down to it, it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, and for me, that's something I would hesitate on anyway. Not that I would never help your daughter with anything she does for her work projects,
Yeah.
but that's a different thing than sometimes it's better that work is work and home is home.
Right. Oh, definitely.
Yep.
Definitely.
That's all I mean to say by that. But
yeah.
you and your spouse being on the same page, that's huge here, but that's a big piece of a lot of things.
It is. And you have to look at what is your plan for life. I mean, you have tried to set goals in your marriage or relationships the same as you set goals in your business. But if your goal is to be a multi-billionaire, it's going to take you away from the family 95% of the time. There's going to be big problems, and nobody is really going to be fulfilled. And, history shows that, having assets and everything and stockpiling money doesn't buy happiness, and it doesn't give you the peace that, one of the things I thought was kind of ironic, and I'm sure everybody knows Matthew Perry passed away, and he was 54 years old, but in his memoir and even in some of the articles it said, he thought money and fame and everything was going to bring him happiness and peace, and he said it was all a lie. And it's true. There's only one person that can really give you the peace of mind, and that's Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. And for that reason, as you think about starting a business, all this stuff about money and profit can sound discouraging, but I want to tell you, it doesn't have to be millions or billions to be viable or successful or to be able to keep going. If you're smart about it, frugal about it, start small, don't grow too fast, you really can, keep it where you want it.
Right. And that's where everybody's definition of success is always different too. Because what's success to you and what's success to me is different,
Yeah. And I
look at it, I've been in business 27 years plus. Would I do it again? Probably not. But in doing it and being in my own business for as long as I have, it's made me who I am today, and I've learned a lot over the years and through the experiences. But there's a lot to be said, and I told both my kids, don't go into your own business. There's a lot to be said for a regular paycheck, paid vacation, 401ks, all of those things that are benefits that people take for granted that you don't always have when you're in your own business. Now, both of my kids are in their own business.
It can work out too. That's not to say don't do it. It's to say be intentional about it, consider it, know what you're getting into. And just to touch on what was said before, what percentage of billionaires do you think have a happy marriage? Yeah. It's low. I know. I'm not going to name the names, but you've seen the news and you know who's having issues with what, and it's far less than billionaires that start having it.
Right. Yeah, and you have to look at being in your own business, and I will say this on my end, being in my own business has allowed me to care for my family when they were in their time of need. Like when my mom passed away, my dad passed away, my brother passed away, and all those people that, I lost in my family. Being my own business allowed me to help take care of them and be around more than, it probably would have even with the FMLA, because FMLA wasn't always around.
No, and then there is a time limit on a lot of that, and
Right.
You know, beyond that, yeah, your work may have like a disability insurance, or you may be allowed to take unpaid leave, but
Yeah.
I just said unpaid.
Right.
So you still have to figure out how to deal with all
That's
that.
right. That's right. And you still, even though it allowed me to do that, I still had to run my business, and I still had to take care of everything and make sure everything was going forward.
It's not like when that stuff happened in your family, you could just drop the whole thing and just.
Right.
It's more flexible. It's not.
Yeah, it gives
it's
you,
not nothing.
Right.
You know.
Exactly. But you know, one of the things that I always live by too is seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. It's what it says in Matthew 6:33.
That applies to every other episode
It
before
does.
this and everyone after this one
Yes,
too.
it does. You know, you spend a lot of time, especially I do in my own business, in praying and seeking God's guidance and wisdom and knowledge. And, you know, he directs my steps, and sometimes I have to be quiet and listen to him. And there's one thing in your faith walk with God is that he is no respecter of persons. What he'll do for me, he'll do for you. And he loves all of us, which is a great thing. So
Where can I read more about stuff like that, Lisa?
Oh, in the Bible.
Oh, is that what's in there?
Yeah, our book to live by. But there is a lot in deciding on whether you want to start your own business.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you have to pray about it. You have to do your research. Everybody's business is different. You have to do your homework, and you have to be wise and take it small steps at a time. And, you know, you prosper by the fruit of your hands. And if you're willing to work and do what needs to be done, God bless
Takes
you.
time, patience, but
Yeah.
that's
I mean, if you look at the statistics we read in the short, you know, 21% of the businesses fail within the first year. 65+% of the businesses fail up into 10 years. So, you know, the theory is sometimes you'll get off the ground running and you'll start making a profit right away. And sometimes it'll take 3 to 5 years to really start showing a profit. And again, that's going to go into your business. Each business is different. And so you have to really enjoy being in business and enjoy building the relationships to get where you want to go.
Absolutely.
So, yep. And I came from a business or a family of entrepreneurs. My dad started a candy shop. My brothers have all been in their own business. We've all been in our own business for many decades. And it's had its ups and its downs, and you live and you learn. Which is what life is all about.
Yep. So
I think that about wraps us up for our episode on business. If you have any questions, send us an email at thegregandleisashow@gmail.com.
Also, you can address us in the YouTube comments. These are all going up on Facebook too. So, you know, there's lots of ways to message and post and comment on Facebook also. So.
Yeah. And if you like us, hit us that thumbs up. And join us as a subscriber.
Now, because I want this video to be able to last a long time, YouTube always changes what they're doing with how many things you have to click. Like, subscribe, make sure you're getting the notifications, because sometimes you click the bell and you're not always getting the notifications when you do that. Yeah. So that's certainly a good piece too. Yeah, and he's the younger one of this group, so he's got all the social media under control, and I'm still a learning process. All these videos, and they're like, hey, click this and click that, and like in 2 years it's going to be different. Yeah. So, you've been on it, you know what it is. We don't need to talk about that too much. You know what to do. We will see you next week on the Greg and Leisa Show. Yep, have a great week. See ya. Bye.